there. Musings is a sort of mental gymnastics, a yoga for the imagination. It's needed. In the Flat Earth community, there are many who only repeat tangible facts, who only stick to Flat Earth proofs. But there are also some that muse. This is the difference between a scientist and a philosopher, but this sort of chat's for another time. So the Flat Earth community has been engineered in a way so it only talks of enclosed dome or an infinite plane. These are the words used. Nobody is really talking about other lands. My Vedic documentary presented the Vedic scriptures that contain detailed descriptions about the other lands. This documentary stopped two prominent Flat Earth enclosed domers from speaking to me again, but that's also for another time. I've come across some maps that need a further look. Monte Urbano lived from 1544 to 1613. His manuscript Map of the World book was published in Milan in 1587 and added to in 1589. We can clearly see other lands at the southern edge. At the centre are the four Bargas Islands, but a unique shade of blue ink seems to have been added on top. Very strange. This blue ink is also evident near Brazil. And was this map tampered with? In other parts of his book, Monte Urbano clearly showed lands at the north, with rivers and mountains. No strange blue ink here. Green forests were presented on these giant bits of land, and yellow deserts. Also mountains. What is going on here? Here he wrote Terra del Fuego, the land of fire. And in Argentina he wrote the region of the giants. Again we can see mountains and land. This map is by Gennaro Pichicaro from 1597, and this also showed lands in the south. Also it showed some lands in the middle. He labelled this area Circulus Antarcticus and showed strange and wonderful animals. Now maybe exotic animals like the kangaroo and koala came originally from these other lands. This is a map by Cornelis de Jodi, also from the 1500s. He also showed the Bargas Islands in the north centre. If we zoom in, we can see place names, settlement names, rivers. These are surely once explored lands. On this Mercator 1569 world map, it shows lands to the north, with mountains and rivers. Also in the south it shows other lands. And in the corner it also shows these islands at the north. This more famous Mercator map also shows these northern islands, these other lands. And here we can logically see where these most likely are. Probably still there, or under ice due to the flood that was reported around the world. Some Russian dude here says there's a magnetic mountain in the centre. He calls the middle Rupes Nigra and states that Mercator thought it had magnetic powers. Here are some other maps that also contain these islands at the north. This image is from a Russian fairy tale. And this image, found on a similar Russian website, claims this art depicts ships from Hyperborea in the north. Mythical land. Moving on, Frank Herbert, the author of the cult sci-fi book Dune, was a Freemason, and in his book Dune, which has many esoteric and mythological connotations, he has a flat earth map with many lands. Anyway, here is some footage from Antarctica.
And you might wonder, what are sand dunes doing in Antarctica? It's not the first place in the world that you expect to go to find. Antarctica is the coldest, windiest and driest continent on Earth. Driest.
We are told these are natural breaks in the ice. It looks kinda man-made to me. What are these ravines? Don't look too natural to me. Certainly aren't using these little icebreaker ships to make these gouges, or their science boat. Quick, send a science boat to the ice. What are they doing down there? What are they researching or doing? There's certainly a bunch of machinery and projects going on. And look who went there recently. Clinton, Prince Harry. What's going on? Now the new Google Earth, if you zoom in to the exact south point on Google Earth, you can see all these strange stripes. Obviously these aren't photos or satellite images. This is some CGI'd hash-up. How strange this is. Check this out as well. If you go near the north, to this little island off of Russia, and you can do this on anyone's computer, this is repeatable. Just zoom in above this island, you will come across this stripe. Where you can see sort of ice, mountains and forests within this stripe. And it's like they CGI'd over the top of it with some blue. And then here's another stripe. There becomes two stripes for a while. And you can follow this for miles. It actually points directly towards the north centre. I'm just waiting for it to load a bit here. It doesn't go all the way to the North Pole. It actually stops a little bit short. But it looks like there's some high altitude imagery that they don't want us to know about. What is going on? This is the northeast area of Russia. And there the two stripes join up. I don't know what's going on here. But this is strange. It's highly likely they are painting over lands. And here on the new Google Earth, if you go to the north, there's actually no ice there. Actually no ice. They forgot to put the ice in. And here we can see it looks like a monk. There's his sort of face. and his hand's praying. And there we can see a sort of snake. Here we go, if we turn it a bit. There we go. Don't know if you can see that. Like a monk praying. If we turn it round, there's like a face. There's the nose. All global nonsense, really. It can go away. Okay, so we have the maps clue. We want to now digress and look at another clue related to there being more land. In this realm we know, the mainstream known Earth, there is a mass amount of antipathy from an elite. They create ill health and make money from it. They create biological killers in humans and make money from it. They put deadly injections into children while lying about what is inside. They kill people and lie about it and make money from it. Cancer is not a disease, but a fungus that thrives in acidic environments. They lie about what is healthy to eat and drink and make money from it. So with all this wild antipathy, why would we believe these people's microspace cartoons?
The main explanation from mainstream medicine is that disease comes from heredity, something given to you that you cannot change, or from viruses, something you catch from another. When they zoom into viruses, all they show us is microspace CGI. They even link the microspace hoax with the outer space hoax.
Philip Sabatier also tracks viruses by satellite, thanks to the expert eye of Antonio Guel.
It's all cartoons. It's a hoax. Through the poisons of GMO pesticide food, refined sugars, vaccines, and body-altering chemicals disguised as medicine, a change occurs in the human body, making the body a petri dish for funguses and for parasites to easily thrive in. And medical illustrators create cartoons out of their own interpretations of what they see.
Some of the important things to think about when you're interpreting data from the microscope is, do you understand your sample well enough to be able to interpret what you're seeing? There's just a lot of information. In fact, you could almost say that you're going to be overwhelmed by information when you get to the ultrastructural level. And unless you really know your sample well, then this information could actually be misleading.
In the shocking book Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, written by Weston Price in 1939, Price found that the tribes that haven't been touched by modern man's food were very healthy, had no cavities, had perfect dental arches, and faced nose formation. The moment modern food, such as processed flour and sugars, touched these tribes, cavities, disease, and obvious DNA changes occurred, such as teeth crowding in the first generation of babies born under the new food. Not because of heredity, but because of the food. Our divine blueprint is to have everything fit, feel good, and be fully healthy. The elite put in sugar and flour and other toxins to change and mess up the human race, which is a major lack of compassion. Could it also be possible that on the other lands, where there is no toxic food, there are still amazing, super healthy, super charged up beings?
For us, living parasites within the body are very real. Candida, pinworms, threadworms, roundworms, etc. Foreign waste debris in the body is real. Morgellons is man-made and very real. But diseases and viruses, we've not seen enough actual evidence to show that these are real. So, there are no diseases on flat Earth, but the main point is this. On a spinning ball planet, trillions of miles from anywhere, or in a flat enclosed reality, these levels of antipathy don't really make sense. Okay, you can have a warring faction, greed, and steering mass groups of people, but mass genocide and DNA mutation, killing people for money, this doesn't work as well in an enclosed reality as it does if there are other lands. Let me elaborate a little bit. If there are 20 lands or so, throwing a few billion people to the sword at land C23, for instance, for experiments, seems much more likely. Why would anyone be okay killing billions of people if everyone is in the same realm? This is more of an irrational leap. This crazy level of antipathy works more rationally if the ruling and orders are coming from another land. Why dirty one's own doorstep? This might need some contemplation to fully understand, and it's only conjecture for making a point that's not yet been made. But these crazy levels of antipathy just don't fully work in an enclosed system. Let's digress again and look at the money. Let's follow the missing money. Banks are basically thieves. The bigger the bank, the more theft. We also had missing gold during the 9/11 hoax, and depending on your source, the amount was somewhere between $500 million and even $100 billion. Now, do you remember some years ago the Pentagon's missing trillions? This 6 trillion was very well reported. There was also the missing 2.3 trillion.
How can we seriously consider a $50 billion increase in the defense budget when DOD's own auditors say the department cannot account for $2.3 trillion in transactions in 1 year alone?
I doubt, to be honest, that people inside the department are going to be capable of sorting this out. I have a feeling it's going to take some folks from outside to come in and look at this and put in place a process that over a period, and I regret to say, but I've seen how long things take. I think it's going to take a period of years to sort it out. And I think it'll probably take the cooperation of the Congress to try to get the system so that you can actually manage the financial aspects of that institution rather than simply report on things that have happened.
It's a terrible record, and it's preposterous that the Defense Department doesn't know what's happened to this money.
There was also the missing 9 trillion.
Well, I have a copy of the Inspector General Act here in front of me, and it says, among other things, that it's your responsibility to conduct and supervise audits and investigations relating to the programs and operations of your agency.
That's correct.
So I'm asking you if your agency has, in fact, according to Bloomberg, extended $9 trillion in credit, which, by the way, works out to $30,000 for every single man, woman, and child in this country. I'd like to know, if you're not responsible for investigating that, who is?
We have responsibility for the Federal Reserve's programs and operations, audits, to conduct audits and investigations in that area. In terms of who's responsible for investigating, would you mind repeating the question one more time?
What have you done to investigate the off-balance sheet transactions conducted by the Federal Reserve, which, according to Bloomberg, now total $9 trillion in the last 8 months?
I'll have to look specifically at that Bloomberg article. I don't know if I have actually seen that particular one.
That's not the point. The question is, have you done any investigation or auditing of off-balance sheet transactions conducted by the Federal Reserve?
At this point, we're conducting our lending facility project at a fairly high level and have not gotten to a specific level of detail to really be in a position to respond to your question.
My time is up, but I have to tell you honestly, I am shocked to find out that nobody at the Federal Reserve, including the Inspector General, is keeping track of this.
Yeah, so they just lost 9 trillion. Oh, it's down the back of the sofa. Then we have the old Federal Reserve chief not knowing where large lumps of money went.
That helps bring down interest rates in the global market for dollars. And meanwhile, we're not lending to those banks, we're lending to the central bank. The central bank is responsible for repaying us.
So who got the money?
To financial institutions in Europe and other countries.
Which ones?
I don't know.
$500 billion and you don't know who got the money?
But since Obama got in with his Wall Street mates, there was a tight lid put on the Fed and the Pentagon. So nobody knows how much has gone missing in recent years. But I'm pretty sure the trillions are being siphoned away from honest human beings. NASA have a budget of $19.5 billion a year. So let's say only about $50 million is spent on Photoshop, Facebook, YouTube, actors, and fake launches. So that leaves, well, $19.45 billion. Pretty much all of it. And this recent footage from SpaceX could only have cost about $5 or so, as they didn't even film the landing. Just check this out and look at the levels of mind control that are going on.
It looks like we may not have a continuous video feed from the drone ship right now. Like we said, this is expected. We don't currently have direct line of sight with that drone ship. We only have a satellite link, and as it gets down kind of close, that Merlin engine can vibrate the satellite link. And sometimes we can lose video. So just stay put here. We're going to let you know.
Unreal. Yep, there it is. Zero Hedge said the collective humans and countries are 217 trillion in debt, so I wouldn't get too concerned when the criminal credit card dudes get funky over a few grand. Just want to point out here that 1 billion is 1,000 million, and that 1 trillion is 1,000 billion. This is a serious amount of money. Okay, so let's say the elite have 10 or so trillion stashed. A 500-person elite can only buy so many houses, boats, jets, cars and whores. That would only come to a few 100 billion or so. Let's say a few more 100 billion are going on nano projects, chemtrail projects and Antarctica projects. That still doesn't even cover 1 trillion. So where is this money going? You only need a few billion to look after your offspring, family and legacy for generations. So you can't actually spend those trillions here. It's not possible. So what is happening to it? You couldn't spend it all at the ice hall either. These big clues of maps, antipathy and missing trillions lend much support to there being other lands. Trillions can only be spent on one of a few things: colonizing other lands, building on other lands, projects on other lands, or it's being harvested by other lands. In that, I mean turning your energy from your work into items and projects that you will never see far, far away to a different elite. Sounds pretty crazy, huh? Well, so does a spinning ball in a vacuum. Let's wildly digress again and point out that in our known realm there is a massive restriction of movement, and it's happened so slowly over time that most people don't really think about it or contemplate it. Passports are hard to get for many people, and virtually impossible to get for hundreds of millions of people in, say, Cuba, India, Guatemala. They can also be expensive, and they now even contain RFID tracking microchips. Most nations need temporary visas to visit, requiring much strict paperwork in the application phase, and some nations now demand electronic permits. The new toxic body scanners at airports abuse privacy and also create fungus in the body due to the body scanner's radiation. So why do you think the collective consciousness is being put into a state of movement restriction? Well, if there are other hidden lands, and if it's hard to move about, and travel is insanely regulated and controlled, it's much less likely people will be exploring where they shouldn't. Recent movies lend themselves to other lands too, such as Maze Runner, Moana, and Room. So maybe there are many other lands and realms, and this is just one of them. If so, each is likely to have its own sun, or a reflection stroke prism output from a single sun we all share, in a way we can't yet comprehend. but in a way where the sun is individualized for each observer. And maybe other lands help to explain the anti-crepuscular rays that on rare occasions can be seen opposite the setting sun. I saw my first anti-crepuscular ray recently and I was freaking out. Maybe the scores of YouTube channels all screaming it's the Jews, it's the Jesuits, it's the Masons are each only partly correct. Maybe it's some other group on another land. If we are just on land C22, on a plane of many lands, it makes it easier to just experiment with it, easier to harvest it. Chemtrails are a massive black project. It must cost them a few billion. What if they are actually blocking the sun to stop the ice melting, to stop us knowing about other lands? Our realm is cyclic, so maybe the sun slowly gets cooler, creating an ice age, and then slowly gets hotter, melting the ice wall, melting the ice that covers land in the north. For me, these falls in the south are not cartoons or CGI, and I don't believe in the UN's version of global warming. So what is going on? Why the old maps? Why the insane levels of antipathy? Why missing trillions of dollars? Why the restriction of movement? Why the chemtrails blocking the sun? Why strangeness in the southern ice area? Maybe, just maybe, other lands answers these relevant questions.